I want to tell a story about a family who lived here in Norfolk in the 15th century, in the 100 years or so that followed the Peasants' Revolt. But first of all, it's important to realize what was happening in 15th century England. And basically, it was just constant fighting.
One branch of the royal family, the Lancastrians, stole the crown. Another branch, the Yorkists, stole it back. It became known as the Wars of the Roses. It took about 40 years, and there was a lot of blood spilt.
So on one level, nothing's changed. This is still the old-style Middle Ages, the bish-bash-bosh of kings and barons spilling each other's blood. But if you look at the lives of ordinary people, things were changing. And that's what's interesting about this one family, the Pastons. These are the formal gardens at Oxnead Hall, once the Paston family home. And they're pretty gorgeous. But the Pastons weren't always rich. They weren't always a gentry family. And their success shows how much England was changing in the 15th century.
Their story is recorded in letters, and it starts with Clement Paston, who was a peasant. But he had done well working the cheap land available after the Black Death, and he bought his son an education. He became a lawyer and married well, and his son in turn was a lawyer, and he worked as a steward for a local gentleman, Sir John Paston. And when Paston died, he left his estates to his trusty steward, who was knighted by the king and became Sir John Paston.
I'm flying just north of Great Yarmouth, and down there is what's left of Caister Castle, which was the castle that Sir John Paston left to John Paston in his will. So in just 3 generations, the Paston family have moved from being peasants to knights of the realm, and they've got their own castle. It's pretty good going. But that's not the end of the story.
In those days, the big baron round here, the old-style medieval bigwig, was the Duke of Norfolk. And he took offense at the idea of some commoner living in a castle he had always rather fancied.
What the Duke of Norfolk did was he turned up with his army and he besieged Caister. He was still stuck in the days when might was right. And he took Caister from the Pastons at sword point. But what Sir John did next was truly amazing. He won his castle back, not by fighting, but through the courts.
Sir John Paston, remember, was a lawyer. So he used the power of the law to reclaim possession of Caister Castle. In 1470, after 7 years of paperwork, the rogue Duke was beaten.
400 years have passed since the days of the Norman conquest. But in one story, you can see how much has changed. Now we've got education, so people can rise through the ranks of society. Now we've got law, so people are protected from tyranny. And the days of the tough toffs were over.